prostate exams, the only time in life you don't want two thumbs up.
People asked how I kicked heroin. I tell them I just started chasing another type of needle, one that sews up my ripped gym shirts.
So, in other words, you quit heroin and picked up another kind of pump.
Hey, Jimmy, why don't prostate exams get any love?
Why?
They always get the finger.
Alrighty then.
Welcome to the Level Up Life, Muscle and Mindset Mastery, and thank you for tuning in. Today we have Jimmy Greene here. We're going to be discussing his journey with prostate cancer.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, Adam.
Thanks for being on. Grateful you decided to come on, and I'm grateful for you all tuning in.
Well, I didn't decide to come on. I thought if I said no, you'd wind up coming to get me, and it's easier to just say yes.
Right. So, cancer in general is a real serious topic.
Yep.
I think all of our audience has been touched some way, shape, or form by cancer in their lives.
Yeah.
Family, friends, loved ones, themselves. And I try and think about it. If it happened to me, what would that emotion feel like when the doctor walks in and says, what was the experience like for you when the doctor walked in and said, Jimmy, you have cancer?
Well, it's my second bout. So 26 years ago, I suffered through lung cancer. And not a lot of people know I only have one functional lung. So I had half of my lung cut out and the other half of it stapled to my rib cage. So it's not really functional right now. And I always laugh about it because I'm always like, everybody talks about how busy I am and stuff like that. I'm like, can you imagine if I had two lungs? I mean, I'm operating on one, right?
Right.
So, but it's funny. I never thought I'd die. I don't know why. Even then, I never thought I'd die. And it's funny because I felt like the second time I got it, which was a year and a half ago, prostate cancer, I was more alarmed then than the first time around. Because first time around, it's like you don't know what you don't know. So, you're just kind of listening and you hear that word. And even then, it was kind of lung cancer was at the top of the list for mortality, right? But I don't know, for some reason, I just never really felt that I was going to die from it. It was more inconvenience than anything. It was a life-changing experience for me, though, in more ways than one. But the second time around, that's when you're older now, right? So now you know what you know, and you got all this stuff out there, this information, this Google that. And so now you got all these reasons to be afraid. I can't say I was afraid, but there was just this, damn, here we go again moment, just when you think you're past it. And now, you got this new thing happening. So, and then just all these other thoughts, like, am I going to be laid up? What are my options? Again, never thought about dying. I never did. I'm a fatalist by nature, so I'm not a religious person, but I have great faith. And some people have a tough time discerning the two, but I have tremendous faith. And, but being a fatalist means whatever will be, so you can have the healthiest body like yours and, get hit by a drunk driver, so,
Right.
Fatalists kind of think like that. So you don't think about death. You just think it's inevitable anyway. But the thing for me was interesting. I said, damn it, I'm going to share this journey. Don't know why it happened, but I did. And I used social media to literally go through this whole process. Maybe it was a way for me to kind of talk to me like I was talking to other people. I don't know.
Yes, you were processing it by sharing it. Yep.
And it helped me work through some anxieties because, one of the things about cancer that a lot of people don't get is that it's yours. And when you tell people about it, now all of a sudden you got to carry their load. And, they're like, oh my God, they treat you like you're dying. They treat you like, and it becomes an irritant,
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why most people don't talk about it because it's this incredible journey you have to go on, and the last thing you need to do is stroke everybody else, make everybody else feel better. You're like, damn, I'm the one with cancer, and I'm giving you the crying towel. So it was, and still is, one of those experiences that shape your life, shape your opinion, but it gives you incredible perspective too. You get to this place where you realize that all this big stuff yesterday is little stuff today. All the things that gave you anxiety and worry and all that kind of stuff. You talk about minimizing things. People talk about politics, race, sex, all the controversial things, and you're in the I don't give a damn moment, because you just want to stay alive.
Right.
So all that other stuff
just melts away.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It really does. Yeah. So it was an experience that, for men in particular, that I got a lot of reward from. I mean, to say you had cancer and get a reward from it, but I communicated with people. I had a woman send me a private message, and she said, "Oh my God, you might have saved my marriage." And I'm like, "Why?" I responded back to her, and she said, "Because you were talking about some of the things that you were going through, the emotional and physical difficulties you were having, and my husband never talks about stuff like that. He was going through cancer, and that the emotion that you have, the anger, stuff like that, the withdrawal, he never shared any of that. And so I'm talking about mine, and then she got him, and she let him go because I was trying to teach people how to treat me with cancer, like leave me alone. That was part of it right there. How can I help you? Leave me alone. And I know that people are sympathetic and they mean well, but in your world, this battle really is yours, and everybody wants to feel like they're a part of it. You can't be, Leave me alone. If I need you, I'll reach out, but leave me alone.
So it kind of makes me think of like with my struggles that I've been through.
Yeah.
The substance abuse, like people can't. If someone's out there struggling right now, I can't change for them.
No.
But just being a support for them, maybe not hammering on their door every day, hey, you need to quit doing drugs, but
I knew your story.
Know. Yeah.
I knew your story, and it's funny because, when I heard your story, and I thought the only thing I could ever say to you, and I said it to you the first time I met you, I said, well, let me know what I can do. Like, really, and I think people like you and people like me, that's really all I expect. Like, just let me know if you're there, if I need you. Like, I've never been addicted to drugs. I've never had alcohol in my life, which is weird. I never have, which is terrible because it can't explain any of my behaviors. People like, he meant that, boy. And I do, but I've never had this. So I can't empathize with somebody who's an alcoholic or somebody who's been addicted to drugs. I have no idea what that's like. I can sympathize and I can certainly support, but other than that, I mean, I'm out, and I don't want to give the impression that I understand that word, those words right there, just that little phrase. I understand, man. That thing could set off a trigger with people, and it did with me with cancer. I understand. No, you don't.
Right.
And when I was going through radiation and chemotherapy, holy moly, man, the pain. Just the discomfort, all of that stuff. And when people say, well, I understand, and you're just like, no,
let's talk about that because really I'm huge on mindset, making sure I control where my mind's at.
Yeah.
In everything, because if I let it get squirrely on me, then it's not good. So when you had to start going through this treatment and everything, what was your mindset? Were you like, screw this, I'm beating it? Were you, you just mentioned a bunch of pain. How did you handle all of that?
It's funny because I didn't take the medications. They prescribe certain medications for the discomfort and the pain, and I didn't take them because it goes back to, I was always afraid, and that was one of the reasons why I never had alcohol, because I come from an addictive family. And I was so afraid that if I drank, I would like it. And, it was almost a mindset for me. So think about, at my age, to never have had alcohol, I tell people that probably tells you more about me and my discipline than anything. I never did. I played as a fraternity in college. They wanted to beat me up.
Still didn't drink in college?
Nope, never did. I was just always afraid of it. And it was bigger than anything that was facing me, just that I didn't want to be my mom and I didn't want to be my dad. And I reconciled with them and loved them toward the end of their lives, but I didn't want to go down that path. And I thought that's the way to get there is, drinking. And so I didn't. So that discipline for me, and you said a mindset was, if I can do that, I can do this. And I didn't want to take any of the medications. And there were times I'd get out of my car because I was driving back and forth to Lansing 4 days a week, leaving from Saginaw. And I would get out of my car sometimes and just scream because the pain was just so intense. And I just let it out and just kind of wait for it to subside. And then I'd get back in my car, either whether I was coming back and forth. So I always called it the 3:45 moment because I had to take radiation at 3:45 every day. And my doctor at one point wanted to spread it out. And I thought, no, I'm not going to spread it out. I said, what's the more aggressive approach? And he said, well, it's every day. And I said, okay. And he said, yep, 3:45 every day. You got to be here. You got to be hydrated. He told me all the instructions. So I'd literally leave Lansing at 2 o'clock so I can make sure I made that 3:45 appointment every day. So my days shortened in. And but all a mindset, to your point, all a mindset. Never thought I'd die. I just felt like, let me just get through this because I've got to get on with the process of living. And if this is the prescription to it, then I'm all in. So it really is a mindset, and that's why you have to shut people out, and especially for men, which is a difficult thing to do. So I told people, leave me alone. Let me deal with this. As much as people wanted to help, you can't help me. My radiologist can,
Right,
my
right.
oncologist can, my nurse, but you can't. So just leave me alone because I didn't want that disruption. And imagine when you're going through cancer, and here's what people do. Oh, I'm so sorry. Or, hey, they talk to you as if death is impending.
Right.
That is debilitating on a mindset because now it's taking you out of survival into anger and frustration, stuff like that. That's not what you need. So that's why I started talking about it on Facebook. I would literally every day, kind of chart that out on Facebook, instructing people, hey, here's what I'm going through right now. It hurts. There's some pain. If I need you, I'll call you. Please don't. And I literally gave instructions
Please
on
don't.
stuff like
Yep.
that. Yeah. So mindsets are everything. And I think, I think about, what you do, in your day to day. I mean, you could train a body, absolutely. But if there's not a mindset there, I mean, sooner or later the body will wither, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't. If you don't have that mental aptitude, that strength to just endure, to go through, I mean, cancer will eat you up. Yeah. And I just, again, thought that was more of it. I didn't lay down in it. I went to work every single day. And I was leading at the time Memorial Cup, the Saginaw Spirits Memorial Cup. And so I stayed busy enough to distract me away from, and it does work. It really does. For me, I shouldn't say that because everybody's different, but for me, I worked through the pain. You could be so busy that it's there, but you almost expect it, right? So you just kind of go through it. And then when that wave would hit, you just kind of go through it. But the physical side of it is debilitating for men because you're going to have sexual issues. You're going to have incontinence. I was laughing about it because I carry my doctor said, well, you might have periods where you might have like some wet stuff,
Right.
And I'm like, man, I can't be going to work, with stains on me, right? And so I carried a black suit every day, which I brought in here today, except I spilled something on my pants, and it wasn't because I peed on myself. Just for you listeners out there, I didn't. But I carried it every day because the one thing I didn't want to do was be embarrassed. And they said, well, you could wear the pins, and I'm talking to you men out there that there is that option, you can do it. But I tried it. But it bulked your pants out so it looked like you. So we have a pride. I mean, and I will say this to men out there, you don't have to sacrifice your pride in order to stay healthy and live. You could just take other measures. I wore dark suits all the time. When I was going through radiation, I wore dark pants. I didn't wear anything light at all because I was so afraid. Because you have incontinence and, sometimes you just have leakage and stuff like that. And I said, nope, I'm not going to. And I didn't have it bad. I think it was like maybe the first week or so. But after that, I just thought, man, I'm carrying dark pants, so if something happened, I could just go in the bathroom somewhere, change clothes, and be okay. So that's a piece of advice for men who might be dealing with prostate is that you can keep that male pride, that ego thing we have. And it's healthy, mind you. I mean, nobody wants to be embarrassed and still go through the process and come out okay.
Yeah. I think understanding too, from other people, in general, and this is maybe a pipe dream, that everybody in the world would just be less judgmental, right?
Oh,
Instead of, what's that guy, you know, what, did he pee his pants, you know, and maybe some chuckles with that. Instead, like, we don't know if you see a stranger in the streets and you see a wet spot right here.
Yeah.
People will assume peed their pants, but
We
not
can't
knowing the backstory, right?
We can't be judgmental, and you're absolutely right. You know, but I always had a phrase for that. I always said I'd rather have wet pants and be alive than dry pants and dead.
Right,
so
right.
you know, bottom line is we do what we got to do, right? And I think that's really the key. But I will tell you, one of the interesting things that I've become kind of a study on prostate. So my prostate scores are like my stress scores, low.
Right.
I tell people that all the time. Like, that's, people say, how you doing? Oh, my stress scores and my PSA scores exactly the same, low.
Yep.
But I will tell men that I found that it's starting to happen at an earlier age. It used to be this 50 plus thing. Now, I just talked to a radiologist just 2 weeks ago. He's a big Spirit fan. And I said, how are you busy? He goes, very. I said, so what are you getting? He said, about men 35 and older now. Like, it's dropped. And I don't know what the cause of that is, and neither does he. His job is to treat it, right? So he doesn't know why this uptick. But I would suggest to you men out there, you're 35 years of age and older, you might not want to wait, because I don't think there's anything worse than a doctor saying to you, no matter what it is, hey, God, if we'd only caught this earlier. So let that be a lesson. And, you know, and it's a piece of cake. You know, the test is a piece of cake. But you want to stay on top of that, because you might have to have radical surgery. And I've learned you go through this kind of help group, and some men who didn't catch it earlier on, they wound up having their prostate surgically removed. And that creates a whole different set of circumstances that I've heard that just aren't as well. That, you know, you're alive, right? But the repercussions and some of the health challenges after that are far more grave than they are by going through the chemo and radiation that I did for 7.5 weeks.
So what's the standard now, I guess, for men? I just turned 40. I've never had mine checked. So you said 35.
Yep.
What is the medical standard? Like, what are they telling people nowadays?
Just get your PSA checked. And again, just have your doctor order a PSA. You can go into, you know, any My Mish or Covenant, any hospital that, you know, or clinic that you go in. You know, they'll draw blood, test your PSA, and it's a pretty simple procedure. And that's what's so interesting about it, you know, because you don't have to go through, you know, this long appointment phase, or go through surgical stuff or get knocked out. It's a blood draw.
Right.
And, you know, you get it done. Man, can you imagine the liberation of just knowing that you're okay?
You're okay. Yep.
You're okay. That's it. Like, that's all I have to do. And that's the weird but, you know, that's the funny thing about it too, is that we take the simple and we make it more complex, especially men. You know, well, if it's not that bad, then I'll just put it off, or I'll just wait. That's what we do.
Right.
You know, until we get to a point where we have to do it. So I think, to your point, that just simply saying, hey, I'm gonna make the time. If you got a lunch hour, you can get a blood draw.
Right. And I think a lot of the stigma, like, there's jokes that go with it. We open this with some jokes with, you know, the doctor with the big fingers or whatever. I think there's a lot of stigma that goes with that. And if it's just a blood test, then it's...
Yeah. And if it's enlarged, there are, you know, I mean, there's a probing at your doctor. But, I mean, you know, so what? At the end of the day, though, Adam, I mean, what's stronger than your mindset? And you brought it up, in your book talks about it. And what's stronger than I want to live? Tell me. Right. I mean, male, female, young, old, you tell me something stronger than the phrase, I want to live. I dare you. There isn't. And so when you say that to yourself, I want to live, then that's a checklist. Okay, well, let me get my PSA done. That's all it is. It's a mindset. And that's why I love what you do so much, because I think people probably look at your stuff more physical and the mental side of it. But if you can do that physically, you can certainly do it mentally. And I'd say it's just the reverse.
Right.
You know, I mean, you train people who have a mental need at that point to go, I want to be healthier, or I want to be stronger, or whatever that is. That starts with a mindset, you know. And I think the same thing happens when you say, I want to live. So what's the checklist? There you go. Eat healthier, work out, eat, you know, that kind of thing. PSA. Yep. It's a simple
blood work.
It's a simple formula for men.
Yearly checkup, you know.
That's exactly it.
And you can, I work with people even further along the line than that. Like what we put into our bodies, we fuel our bodies with really matters. And if we're eating, McDonald's every day or fast food in general.
You're trying to get on me about my fish sandwich, aren't you?
Well,
it was just one time I was hungry.
It's just a
I
jab,
was running
right?
late. I know. I was running late. So
right. So what we feed ourselves with really matters. And I think in addition to that, it really matters. We talk about feeding our minds, right? So what do we have on our social media feeds, right? If we're scrolling through and it's all political posts, then negativity, right? So I like to structure my social media feed to where it's educational. I follow doctors,
I've seen
exercise science, and I can, when I'm doom scrolling, I'm actually educating myself. So
I like that.
Now let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Pine Haven Assisted Living. At Pine Haven Assisted Living, they believe in making every resident feel at home. Nestled in the peaceful countryside of Hemlock, Michigan, they offer compassionate care in a family-like environment where residents can enjoy independence with the support they need. Registered nurse-owned and operated, their team provides personalized care, home-cooked meals, and a range of activities to ensure your loved ones continue to live a fulfilling life. They also have alpacas and llamas on site to enrich the lives of their residents. Experience the warmth and comfort of Pine Haven. Call them today at 989-295-6632. That's 989-295-6632. Or you can visit them on their website at pinehavenassistedliving.com. That's pinehavenassistedliving.com for more information. Now, back to the Level Up Life. Well, we feed our minds, and going back to the cancer, I think if everyone's like, are you okay? Are you okay? What can I do? Feeling sick, like you already know you have this. And if it's like, I feel like crap, I'm going through this treatment, and then people are asking you, what does that do for your mind state? I think what you did is really admirable. I think it would be hard to really like lock in, dig in, not take the pain meds, all that stuff. And I think that mindset can apply to pretty much anything in life. Just lock in, right?
Yeah, but I think, and again, I think life is checkers. It's not chess. And people try to make life more complicated, and it's not. It's it's just checkers, the basics, the fundamentals. That's what it boils down to. And you just said it too. I mean, it's just a matter of just doing your own personal checklist, and that starts with that I want to live thing. And I think the sooner you get there, the better you are. So even somebody like me who's a faithless, I still have the faith that there's something much bigger than me. There is a Lord, and I certainly subscribe to, God and Jesus and all the tenets and principles of religion. And it's funny to me that people who are people of faith, if they ever read and really study what faith is, it starts first with self. It's not so much what you read, it's how you practice what you read, right? And when you think about people who have faith, knowing that you have to apply that inside and exercise that externally by doing the things necessary. Because, faith without deeds, that's the old phrase, right? Faith without deeds is not faith at all. And I think the same thing is true with a mindset. If you have a mindset, I want to live, but you're not doing the deeds to live, then it's just wasted action, wasted moment, wasted faith. It's wasted, period.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said internal.
Oh, it is.
Right?
It is.
Because if, someone's supportive of someone externally and they're like, I really support you in your endeavor, whatever that may be. Could be health related, could be career, could be anything. And then in the back of their mind, they're either hoping for them to fail or talking trash. They don't line up, right? And that's a problem I see for people. Sometimes they want their goal with fitness, but they don't believe that they can achieve it.
Yeah.
So
I bet.
For me, that's huge as far as my mindset goes. When I was in treatment, I sat there and I was like, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get certified as a trainer and I'm going to build a business. And people looked at me like, you sound pretty certain. And I'm like, I am. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Like they're surprised.
I
right?
told them exactly where I was going to go to work. And some of them believed me, some of them didn't. But I think even with the cancer, like going into it, like I'm going to die. I think that can be detrimental.
I think we both have the same, it's so funny you should say that because I think we share the same thing. I mean, you call it cancer. I call it addiction. It's the same kind of death. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, we're like, nobody really cares how you died. You died, right? You're dead.
You're gone.
And so whether that's an addiction or through cancer, it's still it formulates from the same thing. It's an abuse of body, whether that's self-induced or medically induced, I mean, who knows? But it still starts with the same frame of reference. I want to live, right? And when you come out of addiction, you didn't come out saying, hey, I just want to go get some more. You came out saying, I don't want any more. I just want to live. The same thing is true with cancer. After I went through the treatment, that was my thing. I just want to live. And I think that mindset of just wanting to live and having something to live for. You know what I used to tell people too when they would say, how can I help you? I say, plan something for me next month.
Right.
Plan a lunch for me next month. Like I was training people to teach me treat me like I'm going to live. Because in my mind, I'm going to live. So let's plan a lunch next month.
Yeah.
Or, hey, what are you doing this summer? I literally would make people plan something for me. That would be a month or 2 months out. Because I had to look forward to something too. Mindset's great. And we do have great mindsets. But sometimes you do need a little stroking. You do need a little love. You need a little support. And I think that's important. So I would tell anybody who's going through prostate cancer, that if you've had a mindset to live, then start planning for next month and the month after. Start making some plans like you're going to actually live.
Right. So you know a little bit about my story with the addiction.
I do.
I actually overdosed.
I love your story.
And part of that was just like, it took me a minute after that to really change my mindset. But you said, I want to live. I went from, I just wanted to use to I wanted to live. I wanted something different desperately. So I love that. I
think it gives you and I this thing because we're one thing we have in common too is we wear hats, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I remember going into the country club and they made that rule just because of me and you because I never saw that sign. We go in the country club and they'd like no hats allowed. And I was always reminded of a phrase that one of my mentors said to me, and he said, if there are people more concerned about what's on your head than what's in it, then that's a room you don't need to be in. I never forgot that lesson because I used to get, you wear your hat to this, and I've always worn a hat, right? And that was his way. And at one point I was almost ready to succumb to it. Like, well, I take it off when it's appropriate. I don't wear it in church. Don't wear it during the national anthem, obviously, or prayer, but that I never forgot those little lessons that you get along the way. Yeah.
Dress for the job you want, not for the job you have.
Hey,
I heard that, right?
I'm a lot more important under this hat.
Right. Yeah. So you've been super successful in your career. I look up to you in that way because it takes to rise up a ladder of any business and even to build your own business. It takes endless hours. And I think that's phenomenal. I'd love to hear just a little bit about how your work ethic has got you to where you're at.
It's funny. And people ask me that all the time. I don't know, other than I've never been afraid of my life. Like I've never been afraid to ask and answer a question for me. Like when people say, what would it be like for when I say that, I just do it. Like I don't ask and then never answer. So, I look at my career. I started in banking, got bored. I became a stockbroker. I got recruited to open up a telephone service with one of my clients. One of the best things I've ever done in my life. Taught me a lot about myself too. And then you're right. I got involved in politics. I joined ABC. And I've always been, what's unique about my experiences, like I've always been the only black guy in all the rooms I'm in.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is I always felt incredibly comfortable. Like I've never been uncomfortable. But I will tell you this now, my childhood, worst childhood you could ever imagine. I could write and I probably will one day, I had a terrible childhood, and I got through that childhood. I mean, alcoholism, murder. I grew up in the projects, poverty, all of that stuff, right? That you've seen people see on TV, but that was my real life. And it taught me something about me, about my greatest strength, this resiliency. It's probably why I never thought I'd die. Right. I just always feel like I'll bounce back from everything. But it also gives you a little bit of arrogance. And I know that word, people don't like to use it. I'm going to. I became a little bit arrogant in that most people I meet could never have gone through what I've gone through to get to where I got to. And I really believe that. I truly believe that most people would have succumbed. They would have fallen. I have been through hell. And 2 cancers was like, after that. But I've been through hell. Marriages, I've had a marriage fail. And, I've had a lot of those bumps. And through that, I've come out with one lesson. I've always been the better version of me every single time. Like I am so much better than I ever used to be yesterday or last year or the year before. Every day, I'm just a better me. And so with that, I've never been afraid to just do things, right? Because I always feel like if it fails, I'll just pick up and do something different.
Right.
So, starting these businesses like I did, and I started being a lobbyist, which I love too. I mean, because it's with being a lobbyist, all you do is talk, and I can certainly talk. But it's a person of conviction. And when you've been through all the stuff that you've been through, it teaches you something about humanity, about people, that everybody has this capacity to fail, but very few have a capacity to pick up and be better versions of themselves. You do. Water seeks its own level. When we first met, you click. Like you meet these people who've been through what you've been through, and you feel like you've known them forever. Like you can't put a timestamp on it. Mm-hmm. But there are other people who have not endured. And you can see it in their behaviors. They're arrogant and they have no compassion for people. They're judgmental. Those are people who've never experienced hell like we have.
Right.
And when you come through it, man, I tell you what, compassion is just like, it's like on your right shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Way easier.
And I go through every now and then I have to kind of slap myself because I still feel like I have a little bit of a imposter syndrome. When you come through all the stuff you've come through and people look up to you and, like you, calling me on the talk show. I'm not kidding you. When people ask me, would you like to be on? Or, I'm flattered. Like I still have this, why you want to talk to me? Why? And I know I get all the things I've done and all the successes, but I still, when you go through like life I have, man, you still kind of get into that why me kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And maybe sometimes you're looking over your shoulder, like when's the jig up,
Yeah. And that's like, I did an opener for one episode that was, I'm a felon. Mm-hmm. I was a drug addict. Like these things, if I'm constantly focused on what I was at one point, then I'm not moving forward. I'm still looking back. Yeah. So I think you illustrated that it's a growth mindset, and you're constantly looking forward. How can I grow? How can I improve?
Yeah. And I never look. I think the reason maybe I resonate with so many people is I never look up to anybody. I don't. And I never look down on anybody. Everybody I meet is eyeball to eyeball. And I always felt like I said earlier that I walk into rooms like I'm the only one of me for the most part. But I always felt like I was the thermostat in the room. Like everybody else was kind of reading the temperature, and I was setting it. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of confidence you do, because you're one of only you in a room, right? So you just either got to succumb to it or you just got to rise to it. And me, I've always been able to just rise to it. And so there's a little bit of a swag in that, but it's induced. It's not a natural state for me. I'm a lot more humble than people could ever imagine. That goes back to that imposter syndrome I was talking about. But you got to fluff your feathers. You got to be the peacock in the room full of penguins. All those little adages. But it is. It's been an amazing life. And I don't anticipate it ending anytime soon. But being able to sit with you and have these kind of conversations. When I walk out of here, I'm just gonna pinch myself and go, "Yeah, it's been good. It's been really good." And you get a chance, because sometimes we go through this every day, like you do and I do. We don't go back to what we used to be, right?
Right.
But then when you have these kind of conversations and you remind yourself, because that's all this is. This is just a reminder of what we were, what we went through, and then you just bless yourself. Like, wow.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think sharing openly about your journey with cancer, and I mean, I'm looking forward to when you write that book because I'll definitely.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll
Somebody gave me a
definitely be
really good
reading it.
title, "Pieces of Me." Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. I love
Yeah,
that.
I did too. Yeah, she wrote it on my Facebook page because I was sharing some things, and I'm very open, very open. My politics, faith, I mean, you name it, and that's intentional for me because I think, and I hope it is for you too. Like you write a book, and you don't want anybody to control your narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell my story. So let me tell my story, and that's why I use social media the way I do. It's my story. I'll tell it.
Right.
And you don't like something or you're opposed to something, because one thing I never do is try to influence or change somebody's mind. It's my story, my opinion,
Yep.
and that's a release for me.
Mm-hmm.
I always said on my epitaph it'll be like my name, my date of birth, my date of death, and then my epitaph will read, "He had nothing left to say."
Yeah, I think just the ability to share and for anybody, your experience gives other people hope, gives them strength. They may hear this show here and they may look at just a piece of it, and it may give them something they can move forward with. And I wholeheartedly believe that when I share my story, it might give someone strength out there. And if you would have asked me 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, any further back, if I would be doing this right now, if you would have told me I'd be doing this, I would have laughed. If I to have built the life I have. And I look at your story, like I'd love to hear more about your childhood and kind of how your parent. I was different. My dad was an alcoholic. My grandpa was an alcoholic, and I felt some sort of draw to it because when they weren't around, I thought maybe if I get drunk or high or use this or use that, I may be able to connect with them somehow. Which that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
But
Well, don't think for 1 minute, because I tell you what, I was listening to your story at the Rotary group one day, and people like who've gone through what we've gone through, like a lot of people were in there, they were teary eyed, and they were like listening to your story, and I was smiling. Like it was different for me, right? Because that goes back to water seeks its own level. I didn't cry at all. I was like, I thought, yeah, this is cool, man, because this is somebody who would know my journey, somebody who would get that. And, I walked out of there just a little bit higher, because when you have people who've gone through that and just reached this place where they're just normal now, and I don't think people understand that. Like, we're just normal now.
Right.
We weren't normal.
we're normal.
Yeah, I know. Ain't that a cuss on your thing? But man, but it's true. Like that's the aspiration, to just be normal. Like, to like and not like and just be normal, and not have something on your back, whether it's cancer or addiction or poverty or all the stuff that we grew up with, to just shake that off your back, man, and just be normal and have the same hang-ups and everything that everybody else does. It's a good place to be. Just normal.
Absolutely. I am grateful you came on today, Jimmy.
It's been a blessing, man.
It's
I tell
awesome,
you.
man.
Yeah,
I feel even more
myself.
connected to you now than before.
Well, I told you, we're water, man.
Yep.
Same level, brother. You got it. I appreciate you too.
Want to give a shout out? Go Spirit.
Oh, absolutely.
Playoffs are starting,
Playoffs starting
right?
Thursday.
Yeah.
Come on out and support us, people.
Yes.
We're the defending Memorial Cup champs. So,
Yes.
everybody's got our head on a swivel, man. But boys will be ready. We'll see. We're already
Awesome.
winners anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the love.
Thank you, Jimmy.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to go on the page, click like, share again, whatever you got to do. Thank you for tuning in from the bottom of my heart.